What if you could read minds like an FBI agent using just active listening? How active listening became the secret weapon of elite FBI negotiators. Picture this. You're sitting in a sealed room, facing an armed hostage-taker who's been holding innocent lives for 12 hours straight. Every word you're about to speak could mean the difference between life and death. This isn't some Hollywood thriller, this is the daily reality for FBI negotiators who've spent decades perfecting a high-performance methodology built on one seemingly simple principle: truly listening. Active listening isn't just paying attention, it's a refined mental discipline that agents master through years of intensive training. When former FBI international hostage negotiator revealed the secrets of this art through his protocols, he unearthed something far deeper than communication techniques. He discovered the key to accessing the human mind during its most vulnerable and defensive moments. Deep within classified FBI files, we find cases where a single moment of genuine listening saved dozens of lives. The Ruby Ridge standoff, airplane hijacking negotiations, terrorist interrogations, they all share one common denominator: the power of making someone feel completely understood before any attempt at persuasion. The mindset of these agents is built on a foundation that goes against our natural instincts. While most people listen to respond, elite negotiators listen to understand. Deeply, they know that whoever controls the conversation isn't the one who talks the most, but the one who asks the right questions and processes answers with surgical precision. This approach is backed by decades of behavioral studies and analysis of thousands of real cases. Agents discovered that the human brain has specific neurological triggers that activate when we feel truly heard. These triggers release oxytocin, reduce cortisol, and create a state of mental openness that makes anyone more collaborative. The discipline of active listening demands that negotiators completely abandon their ego. There's no room for judgments, personal opinions, or hidden agendas. There's only the mission to dive into another person's reality, map their mental structure, and identify emotional connection points that can be used to build bridges. Think about it: every time you felt misunderstood in a crucial conversation, your brain literally shifted into defensive mode. Your amygdala fired up, your logical thinking shut down, and you became focused on protecting rather than collaborating. FBI agents reverse engineer this process. The most fascinating part: this isn't manipulation, it's human connection at its highest level. When agents truly listen, they're not just gathering information, they're honoring the other person's experience and creating psychological safety that naturally leads to cooperation. If you've ever felt like your words don't have the impact they should, drop impact in the comments. Let's discover together how to transform your communication into a high-performance tool. Why master negotiators ask questions that seem obvious but reveal deep secrets. There's a fascinating moment in FBI interrogations that few people know about. When an experienced agent faces a suspect who refuses to talk, they don't pressure, threaten, or bargain. Instead, they ask a seemingly trivial question: "How was your day today before all of this happened?" This isn't a casual question. It's a refined technique called the behavioral change stairway model, developed after analyzing thousands of hours of successful negotiations. Agents discovered that the human brain has a deep psychological need to be understood, especially during moments of high emotional tension. The genius of this approach lies in its apparent simplicity. When we ask questions about everyday experiences, we activate brain areas associated with autobiographical memory and sense of identity. The person doesn't just respond, they reconnect with themselves, creating a mental state that's more receptive to dialogue. FBI protocols teach that there are 3 types of questions that work like master keys to the human mind. First, questions about sensory experiences. What exactly did you see? How did that sound to you? These activate vivid memories and create emotional engagement. Second, questions about feelings. How did you feel when that happened? These access the limbic system and generate empathic connection. The third type is the most powerful. Questions about deep motivations. What was most important to you in that moment? What did you most want to avoid? These questions touch the core of personal values and reveal the true behavioral drivers of the person. Active listening in this context goes far beyond repeating what was said. Agents are trained to identify micro-expressions, changes in vocal tone, breathing patterns, and body language. Each signal is a piece of the mental puzzle of the person they're negotiating with. There's a specific technique called emotional mirroring, where the agent reflects not just the words, but the emotional state of the other person. It sounds like you were really scared in that moment. That must have been extremely frustrating for you. This emotional validation creates a neural bridge that makes the person more collaborative. Here's what most people don't realize. The human brain is hardwired to reciprocate emotional investment. When someone invests genuine curiosity in understanding us, our neural networks literally restructure to become more open and trusting. It's not psychology, it's neuroscience. High performance in this field requires mental discipline to resist the temptation to judge or correct. The negotiator's brain must function like a sophisticated radar, picking up subtle signals and processing information across multiple layers simultaneously. The agents described this state as analytical empathy, the ability to genuinely care about someone's perspective while maintaining complete emotional regulation and strategic thinking. If you recognize that your questions don't generate the responses you need, type connection in the comments. Let's explore how to ask questions that truly open doors. How to transform resistance into collaboration using the emotional echo technique. Here's a secret that forever changed my view on conflict. The best FBI negotiators never try to win an argument. Instead, they do something far more powerful. They make the other person feel victorious while arriving exactly where they wanted from the beginning. The emotional echo technique was born from a surprising discovery during archived case analyses. Agents noticed that the most successful negotiations had a pattern. Instead of contradicting negative emotions, negotiators strategically amplified them. You have every right to be furious. The situation really is unfair to you. I understand why you feel betrayed. This approach seems counterintuitive, but it works because of a fascinating neurological principle. When we validate someone's emotions, especially intense negative ones, the brain interprets this as psychological safety. The defense system disarms, the amygdala calms down, and the prefrontal cortex responsible for logical reasoning returns to full function. The files reveal cases where armed hostage takers lowered their weapons after feeling their frustrations were genuinely understood, not because they agreed with the proposed solution, but because they experienced something rare in adult life: complete emotional validation from a stranger. The mindset behind this technique requires a radical shift in perspective. Instead of seeing resistance as an obstacle, agents learn to see it as valuable information. Every no, every emotional outburst, every moment of tension reveals something important about the person's values, fears, and needs. There's a specific protocol for applying the emotional echo. First, identify the primary emotion behind the words. Often it's fear disguised as anger, or pain masked as aggression. Second, verbalize that emotion more intensely than the person expressed it. You're not just upset, you're absolutely devastated by this betrayal. The third step is crucial. Create silent space after the validation. Silence allows the person to process the experience of being truly seen and understood. In this moment of vulnerability, they naturally become more receptive to suggestions and alternatives. What's remarkable is how this technique works in everyday situations too. When your teenager is having a meltdown, when your colleague is being defensive, when your spouse is frustrated, the instinct to minimize or fix their emotions actually escalates the conflict. The discipline required to execute this technique is immense. It requires the negotiator to completely suspend their personal judgments and enter a state of genuine empathy, even with people who have committed terrible acts. Agents describe this as lending your nervous system to the other person. If you've noticed that your attempts to calm tense situations only make things worse, write transformation in the comments. Resistance can become your greatest ally when you understand its secret language. What if you could read minds like a federal agent through microsignal decoding? The FBI's behavioral laboratory holds a secret few know. It's possible to read someone's thoughts with 87% accuracy just by observing signals they don't even realize they're sending. This ability isn't a natural gift, it's the result of years of systematic training to decode the hidden language of human behavior. When an experienced negotiator enters a room, their eyes aren't just seeing, they're scanning. They observe the position of the person's feet reveals whether they want to flee or fight. The direction of their gaze indicates where their real concerns lie, and facial microtensions that last less than a second but betray suppressed emotions. The most fascinating discovery came from analyzing interrogation recordings. Researchers noticed that people lying or hiding important information display specific behavioral patterns within the first 30 seconds of conversation. They touch their face more frequently, especially near the mouth and nose. They make slightly longer pauses before answering direct questions. Their gestures become less synchronized with their words. But there's something even more revealing. Low emotional inconsistency. When someone says, "I'm fine," but their facial muscles contract imperceptibly for 200 milliseconds, a trained agent's brain catches that discord instantly. It's as if there are two conversations happening simultaneously, one verbal and one physical. The protocol for developing this capability involves daily systematic observation exercises. Agents practice identifying emotional states just through photographs of facial expressions. They study slow-motion videos to recognize micro-expressions. They participate in simulations where they must deduce information about people through behavioral observation alone. High performance in this area requires complete brain rewiring. The mind must learn to process multiple information channels simultaneously: words, vocal tone, body language, breathing, micro-expressions, and integrate everything into a coherent reading of the person. One of the most powerful techniques is called behavioral baselining. In the first few minutes of any interaction, the agent establishes the person's normal behavioral pattern, how they speak when relaxed, their natural gestures, their breathing rhythm. Any deviation from this baseline indicates a change in emotional or mental state. Agents also learn that the most revealing moment in a negotiation isn't when the person is speaking, but in the microseconds before they start speaking. In this brief interval, the brain hasn't yet activated conscious filters, and true intentions become visible through genuine facial expressions. This ability has transformed communication effectiveness across all areas of life. When you can read people's real emotional state, your words become precise as a scalpel, touching exactly the points that generate openness and collaboration. The most advanced agents develop what they call predictive empathy, the ability to anticipate someone's emotional reactions before they happen, allowing for preemptive relationship management. If you want to develop this ability to read people like an open book, share this video with someone who's also seeking this level of high performance in communication. In the comments, write, "Decode."